What's up everybody, Straw Hats Are Cool here, and we are back again with another video. It's finally time to do another market watch. We've recently got the official release of OP07 here in the West, so we've got quite a bit to cover. I do think this one may end up being a bit shorter though, because kind of as we've been seeing over the past couple months, the overall market price on things is starting to drop. We're moving away from that crazy kind of market that we were seeing towards the end of 2023, and going into 2024 things are definitely starting to calm down. And I know there are going to be people rushing the comments saying things like the game is dying because prices are dropping, yada yada yada. But to be honest, I think the game is in a good spot, and the fact that prices are dropping is a sign that the reprints are helping, more allocations are being met, and people are just able to get their hands on the product they want to get on. But we're still going to go ahead, take a look, and I'm going to point out some cards I think might be potentially good pickups for the current format and all that good stuff. But before we get into today's video, as always, I do just want to thank everyone who has been supporting me in the channel. I do want to apologize, as I have been pretty good about getting my 4 gameplay videos a week, but I wasn't able to do one on Tuesday, which was yesterday at the time of this recording. Just been a little busy, and I wasn't really feeling like doing more games with the Foxy deck. But yeah, so I apologize for a little bit of lack of consistency there. My wedding reception and whatnot is all happening this weekend as well, so a lot of planning going on there, and just want to make sure everything goes well on that end. So lots of personal stuff, but that doesn't really matter. Additionally, we've got a Discord link for that will be down in the video description, and we have a link for TCG player affiliate. So if you plan on buying any of the cards mentioned in this video, I would appreciate it if you use the link down in the video description, as if you do use that link, a small percentage of your purchase will go towards supporting me and the channel. But with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump right into the market watch, starting things off with our chase cards. Now looking here, we do even have some cheaper listings for the Monkey D. Luffy than we've seen in quite a while. The seller does only have 88% feedback and only 19 sales, so could be a little bit sketchy, but we do have a listing here at about $2,200, which is by far and away the lowest I've seen this card listed on TCG Player in quite a while. I think if you were able to find this on either one of the Discord groups or in a Facebook, you could probably pick it up for around this price as well, and might be a little bit safer, and you won't have to pay taxes or anything like that. So that's definitely a plus. But majority of your listings are still about 3K here on the Monkey D. Luffy, but they are starting to come down a little bit, which is to be expected. I think we did get some OP05 reprints. I know some of the LGS in my area got more OP05, and that's definitely a good thing. Sealed product for OP05 is still blown way out of proportion in my opinion, due solely to the fact that outside of your manga cards, most of the cards, even the alts in the set, are the lowest valued cards among all the sets right now, but it is what it is. We've also got Shanks here. We've got PSA 10 Japanese here. So a couple Japanese listings here, a little under 1,500, but for a standard English copy, we're looking at about $1,500 right now, which is again a little bit cheaper than we were seeing. But we have also seen some reprints for OP01 hitting LGSs, so that makes sense. I believe when I traded my friend, it was valued at about 1,700, so not a significant drop, but it did come down a little bit. Don't imagine it'll come down too much more than this, as most of the reprints are already out there and opened, so don't expect this one to drop too much more. Shanks is definitely still going to be one of the more expensive chase cards from the main sets. The Oda-sign Luffy also coming down a little bit, I want to say. Probably been pretty stable around here. Initially around the first couple months, it was sitting around 1,800 to 2 grand, and we've slowly seen this one drop a little bit as well. Again, obviously still a very expensive card, and this, alongside the 3 mangas from OP05, are the reason that sealed product is as much as it is, because like I said when I was talking about the manga Luffy, or the majority of the cards in OP05 and the alts, they're relatively cheap now. People opened a lot of OP05, of course, hoping to hit either this or one of the 3 manga cards, and for that reason alone, the sealed product is still holding value, because of course there is a chance you could get one of those 4 chase cards. Yeah, I think the Oda-sign Luffy, this is it seems hard to say it's a fair price considering it's a piece of cardboard that is priced at $1,500, but if you put it in line with the other mangas, I don't know, it makes sense to me. Don't expect this one to move around too much. A little bit of a dip on the Ace as well. Some stores did recently get Paramount War reprints as well. A couple, 2 or 3 of the LGSs in my area I know got it. So that's definitely a good thing. I think one of my LGSs will be giving out some packs as an option for participating in their local event here in the next couple weeks. That's always fun, especially for the newer players who weren't able to open Paramount War. These reprints are a big help. But honestly, this one's been pretty stable here around that $900 price point. We've seen it between $900 and $1,100 for the last couple months, and settling here at about $900 seems fair. Boa Hancock, this one is definitely tanked. If you were following the prices during pre-sales, I want to say this one started around $1,500, and then after release it's quickly been dropping down in price, even a little more quickly than I expected. I kind of expected this one to settle around the same price as Zoro, but it's dropping a lot more quickly than Zoro did, so could definitely see this one even end up a little bit lower in price than Zoro, which I, a little bit surprised by, considering I figured waifu tax would play a role here. But if you weren't watching the Twitter yesterday, we actually did get manga Nami revealed for the reprint set coming in November here in the West. Imagine that one. The waifu tax is going to do a lot of work there. But yeah, Boa dropping down pretty quick. If you're planning to pick this one up, like myself, personally, I'm going to wait a little bit longer, see where it settles, because I think there's a good chance it could drop a little bit more. Might be going back up a little bit again. If I do recall, there were some listing. Well, no, maybe not. I wanted to say I thought I saw some listings about 700, but we're not quite there yet. So given some more time, though, we might be able to see this one reach down below 800, which would be nice. The manga Law from OP05 also coming down. Been pretty stable around that $800, $900 price point after the initial drop. Good to see as well. Still looking for a copy of one of these myself, so if you know someone who's looking to get rid of one, maybe have them reach out to me in my Discord. Manga Zoro, like I said, this one dropped pretty quick as well. I think initially it was around $1,600, and now we're below half of that original price, so very nice to see there. I think it's fairly reasonable for the Zoro. I know some people were expecting this one to be a lot higher, maybe even up there with the Luffy, but Zoro, while he's the number 2 of the Straw Hats, he's definitely not the protagonist of the series, and for that reason alone, I don't think anything except for maybe Nami is even going to come close to matching Luffy in price. I think Nami and Luffy kind of like the king and queens of One Piece, so makes sense to me. The Manga Kid's coming down a little bit more as well, so kind of excited about that, because this is another one I still need to pick up myself to complete my set. So the fact that we're down right around $700 now is pretty nice. It's been around $800, so down about $100, I think, from when we last looked at it. Definitely good to see, I think. But like I said, kind of with all these mangas, we are getting some reprints. So overall, the price on most of these is coming down. Chopper, this one was weird. It was a lot lower on release, but it's actually come back up. I wanted to say initially it was around $650 around release. Now we're looking at about $750 to $800. So I guess I should have picked this one up around release, as it is up a little bit more now. Not a ton more, but if you look at this one in comparison to some of the other, there are also less listings than it. So there's definitely a possibility, I think, that this one goes up even more. So if you're looking to pick up the Chopper, you might want to do it sooner rather than later. I don't know how allocations were around the world for EB01. They seem pretty good in my area, but it's definitely a little surprising to me to see that there are only 6 listings for the Chopper in comparison to all your others who have not a ton of listings, but most of them are, you know, in the 2 digits. I think all of them are, with the exception of the Chopper here. So that is a little bit surprising. And then you've got your Sabo, which is a little under 500 now, as well as your Soga King, which is the least expensive now, under $400. So as a whole, we're seeing a drop in the manga prices. I think that's honestly a good thing. I mean, they're still chase cards, you know. If you pull this, you're definitely going to be very happy about it. But I know there, like I said, there are going to be people in the comments saying that the fact that the prices are dropping is a bad thing. But I don't know. I'm a collector myself, and to me, the value doesn't matter too much. Like, yeah, it's cool to say you've got an expensive card, but at the end of the day, I'm very passionate about the series, and I just want to have the cards. That doesn't matter to me if it's a $20 card or a $2,000 card. I mean, obviously, if I paid $2,000 for it, I'm going to want it to hold some value, but the fact that it's dropping a little bit doesn't matter too much to me. So anyway, that's it for our chase cards. Let's go ahead and jump into our main set. So for sealed product on OP01, we have seen a pretty tremendous drop, and this is due to the fact that we did get the reprints. So we're looking at about $250 right now for a sealed box of OP01. What's interesting though is they did add a listing for the original Wave 1. For those of you who don't know, the Wave 1, I believe the boxes were slightly taller on the Wave 1 boxes, and they also had a blue bottom. That's how you could kind of differentiate Wave 1 from all the other waves. And the Wave 1 boxes are sitting at about $850 right now. So this is like your first print, pre-errata, all that stuff. So these boxes are definitely still holding a lot more value. We did even see one sell here at $750. I'm always a little bit skeptical of these sales. I feel like a lot of the time it's someone just buying their own listing to make it look like it's selling this price, artificially inflating it for everyone else, but who's to say. But yeah, we do have a listing now on TCG Player for those Wave 1 blue bottom boxes. As far as leader goes, the prices, as you would expect due to the reprints, are dropping, but what's interesting to me is that the Doflamingo has actually, well, maybe not in terms of market price, in terms of actual listings right now, is the most expensive leader. Not totally surprising, as among the 8 leaders from OP01, Doflamingo is probably the most playable in the current format. I still think Zoro does have some playability as well, but he's definitely fallen off, you know, from his former glory sets, probably 2 through 4. I want to say Zoro is definitely one of the strongest leaders in the game. Doflamingo making a comeback, got some support in OP07, and we'll be getting some more support in, what is it, ST15, 16? I think it's ST16 maybe. I don't know. One of those, the reprint starter deck for Doflamingo has some nice new cards for the deck as well. Overall, I think this is, you know, moving in the right direction. Definitely glad that this Luffy's down a little bit. I think this one was way super inflated at almost $300 at one point. So glad to see this one coming down a little bit. In terms of your main set cards for red, Nami's down from where she was as well. You're going to hear me saying that a lot. I want to say it was like 270. We're down at about 180. Zoro's down below $100 as well. I know some law builds for Red Purple Law have been playing this, but most of the more successful ones have not been playing it as of recently. So I don't think it makes sense that this one's dropping. I do still think it's one of the best looking cards in the set, so if you're a collector who doesn't have this one in your collection, now might be a good time to pick it up. For the 2K counter Sanji, I don't know if it's confirmed. I don't think there's any confirmation that this is one of the cards that will be getting a reprint in the ERB01 reprint set that we're getting here in the West in November. We've been seeing a lot of the leaks and official announcement for that stuff recently. A lot of beautiful cards from that set. Looks like it's going to be a very nice set for collectors like myself, so I'm very excited for it, but I'm also a little scared for my wallet. But we are also getting a new Sanji leader in that set, and I do think that leader is going to be pretty solid, and I think this 2K counter Sanji is going to be a really good card in that deck in particular. So if you are someone who likes to max rarity or decks, I do think the Sanji could be a good pickup, as this is one I could see going back up in price. I could also say the same thing about the Luffy. Personally, I don't think the Luffy's going to be very good in the deck, but it is definitely something to consider. The new Sanji leader, able to give characters without non-play rush, does mean that this Luffy is kind of like a 2-cost 5k with rush, but the thing you do have to keep in mind there is that on defense it's still only a 3k, though I do believe it does have immunity to strike type attribute characters, so that is something to keep in mind. But I definitely think the Sanji could be a very cool card for the deck, essentially being a 2-cost 7k with rush if you're able to play it at the right time. Granted, you do have to take a life to use this effect, but I think with a deck where you're playing lots of rush cards, it means your opponent is likely going to have characters they can attack into all the time, which means they might try and starve you out, in which case this card is going to be exceptionally powerful, allowing you to prevent your opponent from successfully starving you out. Outside of that, though, most of your OP01 cards are down in price. You even got the Otamas now, which we were seeing around $6 for a while. This is getting a reprint in PRB01 as well, so we are seeing the price on this one drop as well. And I think this, like I said, I don't care about the people who are going to go down in the comments saying things like the game are dying, prices are tanking, this is horrible for the game. The game is doing very well. You can see it in the tournaments. They're having very high attendance. They're almost all filling up. And that is a good sign for the game. And this means that the game is just becoming more accessible to newer players. And I think ultimately that's what matters. There's still nice chase cards for the collectors, but people aren't able to just kind of scalp and turn over a huge profit on things like an uncommon Otama now, and that's great. So that's it for the red stuff. For your green stuff, things are down. Eustace Captain Kidd alt being your most expensive green card. I don't know if we've seen a official announcement that this one's getting a reprint in PRB01 either. I would imagine it does, as it is still one of the more expensive SRs. Now granted, the reprint set won't come out till November, and currently Bonnie is a very good deck. So if you're planning on playing Bonnie, this is definitely a card you should consider playing in that deck. And if you don't have it, it's probably a decent time to pick it up, as we are seeing the lowest prices we've seen in quite a while, but they could drop a little bit more as well. Secret Rare Yamato, not the most expensive green card anymore. I think it's a good thing. Card still looks great, don't get me wrong, but it's not a very playable card. Definitely more of a collector piece. And it is also, this is one we do know is getting a reprint in PRB01. I personally still think this art is much better, so if you don't have any copies of this card and you would like one, now is probably a great time to do it, as I do imagine over time, these OP01 cards will go back up in price again, assuming the game stays relevant, which for the time being it looks like it will. So I think this is probably a decent pickup for your collection if you don't have one, as I think this is probably the last wave of reprints we're getting for OP01. So once this is done, I think you will probably start to see prices on these alternate arts go back up. But yeah, other than that, things look pretty good here. Your Izos are down, your Momos are down. We do have the Momo as a card you can get from participating in your local store tournaments now through Tournament Pack Volume 7. That's great. The art on that one's a lot better than this crummy anime screenshot. We love to see that. And yeah, that's it for the green stuff. So on to blue. Boa Hancock, currently the most expensive card, but down almost half from where it was at one point, about $64. Again, definitely more of a collector's piece. Even in the Doflamingo decks, this isn't a card that's seeing a lot of play right now. As it doesn't do anything immediately when you play it. And I think that is super important in the current format, as because we're in a very removal heavy format right now, you need to make sure the cards you're playing are doing something the turn they hit the field, because if they don't, chances are they're going to get removed and you're not going to get any value out of that play. So definitely just more of a collector's piece here. You can play it in like your Doflamingo or your Boa decks, but I don't think you need to. There are definitely better options. If you're looking for a better blue option in your deck that's a blocker, the Doflamingo is definitely your guy. Still a blocker, 3 cost, but this one has a much better on-play effect. And he's the second most expensive alt for blue right now. And this is not one that's gotten a confirmed reprint either, so I think that makes sense. Definitely just one of the best cards in blue. You're going to see this as probably a 4 of in all your Boa decks, all your Dofi decks for sure. It's just a very good staple blue card in general. The Mihawk is getting a reprint. Personally, I don't love the art on the reprint, so I think most people, including myself, would still opt to use this one. And because the prices are down so much, like I kind of said with the Yamato, it could be a good time to pick this one up, because I do believe this is going to be the last reprint wave for OP01. So over time, these original alternate arts are going to go back up. You will, of course, have the option to get the ones from PRB01, but you know, it comes to preference on art and what you think is better and or more max rarity. But personally, I think this card is far and away much better than the one in PRB01. Box Topper Perona, probably just going to continue to hold value as it's a very good card for the Doflamingo deck, and there aren't any other versions of this card as far as I'm aware. Potentially could get a new reprint, kind of like the Otama in PRB01, but I don't think we have any confirmation of that as of now. Crocodile, this card doesn't see much play in anything. Maybe it's a cheeky tech in Nami, but this card isn't super relevant right now. But we are seeing that the Doflamingo rare is one of the more expensive ones in the set. Do keep in mind that this one does have a judge variant as well, so if you're looking for something maybe a little bit nicer, that is an option. And I want to say they're about the same price as the regular rare right now, but blue's definitely a little bit more popular in the current format. I think it has a really bad matchup into black, but into Black Yellow Luffy and Bonnie, I think it has a really strong matchup. So it's definitely worth considering playing, but I think with Black Lucci being a very relevant deck, it's going to be hard for blue to, you know, be super consistent in topping events. But if you like playing blue, better time than it has been for the last couple formats. And as far as purple stuff goes, none of these cards are seeing play right now, and most of them are probably getting reprints in the reprint set. If you're a collector and you don't have these cards, I would say there is no reason not to pick these up now. They're super cheap, but other than that, you don't need these cards. They're not seeing play. For OP02, your sealed product also down a lot because, like I said, stores have been getting reprints for this one as well, which I think is good, especially, like I said, for those newer players who are never able to get their hands on sealed product for these older sets. This is nice, but again, it's probably going to be the last wave of reprints for Paramount War, so following this, I would not be surprised if alts start going back up in price slowly over time. Assuming those cards stay relevant, like with any card game, power creep is a thing. They've got to give you a reason to buy new cards from the new set. So over time, a lot of these cards will probably fall out of viability, but in terms of a collecting standpoint, I still think they will hold some value. As far as your leader goes, Edward Newgate back up to the most expensive. There was a brief moment where Smoker was the most expensive leader due to some hype surrounding that little like 2-week format we had where Sakazuki and Great Eruption and Reject got banned, but OP07 was not legal yet. There was a very brief window where I think there were 2 big events that we had that format, and Smoker was a deck that was getting a little bit of hype in that 2-week format, but now that that's over and done with, he's back kind of about where he was, in line with all of the other leaders. Newgate, of course, always just kind of seems to be somewhat relevant, though I think now in OP07 he might be. You're probably not going to see this one sneaking up as much like we did in OP06 and OP05. As far as our red cards go, Ace is down a lot, and personally, I'm probably going to be picking up a couple of these because I only ever had one, and I would like to have a couple others to play around with. Maybe I want to play around with Marco in OP08. While not the strongest leader out there, he does look like a lot of fun, and I think this will be a staple card for that deck. Newgate down as, you know, like I said, everything's down, and I don't have a problem with this. I think this is good, making the game more accessible for newer players. And with a game that's already doing so well, I think having the game be accessible to new players is a really good thing. But like I said, Marco, not a super good leader. I think Newgate's still a very good card in red, purple Luffy. Personal favorite deck of mine, and while I don't think it is by any means the strongest deck in the format, I do think there is still potential for it in OP07. I think I'm going to try and do a video with it for tomorrow actually, so if you're interested in that, be sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss out on that. Your film stuff down in price now that OP06 EB01 format is done. Uta, unfortunately, isn't really able to keep up in the format. There is a chance that it's able to make a comeback through some of the support they get in the reprint starter deck they're getting. That's going to be the green reprint starter deck is for Uta. And there are some nice new cards for the deck, but assuming that removal stays as strong as it is, I think it's going to be hard for a deck like Uta to keep up with that, considering they're lacking removal options themselves. The new Shanks card they get's pretty nice, but I don't know, I don't think it's good enough to, keep the deck relevant in our removal heavy format that we have right now. And everything else, relatively cheap. If you are planning to play Uta, I think it's a good deck to get you into the game, and with the Nami SRs being a little bit cheaper, it's worth considering. I think it's a good deck to teach you kind of the fundamentals of the game, but don't be expecting to win a whole event with Uta in the current format. Blue stuff, maybe if you want to play Nami, of course, you've still got the Impel Down option, but outside of that, the blue cards from Paramount War, unfortunately, none of them are very good. And even with the little bit of support we got in EB01 for Impel Down, definitely not enough to keep blue Impel Down relevant. Same thing for the purple Impel Down. I do think low-key mono purple Luffy could sneak up and have a couple tops this format. I don't see it winning a whole event, but I do think it is okay. And for the main reason being that they can play Magellan, which can really throw off a mono black deck as well as the black yellow Luffy deck. Being able to even get them to throw back one Dawn can completely ruin their curve, especially if they choose to go second, which is what they want. And purple Luffy's a deck that wants to go first. If you're able to go first and then play two of these on turn 4, like you're able to do in some cases, your opponent's gonna be in a really bad spot, being that you're gonna have put them back on their 6th Dawn turn. My friend did it to me a couple times during testing. I do think the deck has potential. Like I said, I don't see it winning a bunch of events this format, but I could see it getting some tops in OP07. So with the alt only being $12, if you want to alt out your purple Luffy deck, I'd say it's a fair pickup. We are also getting that PSA Luffy. People are getting that shipped out. I haven't gotten my copy of it yet, but I am seeing on Twitter that lots of people are already getting their PSA magazines with their alternate art for the purple Luffy. So if you want to play around with it, you want to max out your deck, the Magellan's probably a good pickup here at $12. And for black stuff, it's down. Borsalino once was up over $100 and we're about $50 right now. It's not seeing as much play in black decks. However, I have been messing around with a different build for Lucci that a creator on Twitter shared from another player over in Singapore. So more details on that deck coming soon. I'll probably do a video on that one as well. It's been doing pretty well, and it is running Borsalino. And then Perona is also a deck that's usually running 3 to 4 copies of Borsalino as well. So if you're looking to play Perona, I'd definitely say if you're looking to max out your deck, it's a pretty good pickup. Even if you're not looking to max up your deck, Borsalinos are the cheapest. We've seen them in quite a while. So if Perona's deck you want to play, probably a decent time to go ahead and pick up those Borsalinos if you were holding off on doing so. I know there are some builds of Black Yellow Luffy that have been running 10-drop Kuzan. I don't think that's the move, but if it's something you want to try out, your 10-drop Kuzans are also a bit lower in price as well. And lastly, Sakazuki is a card that has been seeing some play in Gecko Moria. as a means of helping them in the black-yellow Luffy matchup, giving them a removal piece for a 5 cost that also helps fill the trash. This is all good because you don't generally want to be attacking into black-yellow Luffy in the early turns, as it does set their leader effect active by putting them down to 0 life a little more quickly. But outside of that, you know, your black cards, all, like I said, the whole kind of market is down, and I'm okay with that. For OP03, starting things off with our red card, or our sealed product. Sealed product for OP03 is still more expensive. And the reason being, we haven't actually gotten any reprints for this one, at least yet. I don't know if we will. I've not heard anything about getting reprints for OP03, but currently in line with OP01 sealed product, which is never something I thought I'd see, but with the help of reprints, that's where we're at right now. Your leader cards, Katakuri's way down from its former glory. It's still a deck you can play in OP07, but it's definitely not the powerhouse that it was during OP06. Nami, I do think, actually has a little bit more room to be successful in this format. They get access to some nice new blue events with the Amazon Lily type support. So I do definitely think Nami's a deck that could be potentially very good in this format. Obviously, Jack, you need to have your reps with and know your matchups for. It does, I think, have a really bad red-purple law matchup, which is probably what's going to hold this deck back. But the format as a whole, I think, is a little bit slower than it once was. And into black decks and decks like Bonnie, I think Nami is a deck that a good pilot could do very well into. For your red cards, your SP Luffy, under $100 right now. It's the lowest we've seen it in a little bit. Marco at about $30, and again, everything else, you know, your regular rares, SRs, relatively cheap. Marco's gonna be a nice card for your Marco deck, but like I said, it's not the most playable deck, unfortunately. For green stuff, the only green card that really has any value right now is the Eustace Captain Kidd. He's a very nice card. We already talked about his alt in OP01. Personally, I prefer the OP01 alt over the Wanted alt. Very good card in the Bonnie deck, though, as we mentioned. The Don Krieg is actually a card I want to talk about because it's super cheap, and me and some other guys I play test with from time to time were talking about playing this card in Perona as a way to help better your red-purple law matchup. For those of you who don't know, Don Krieg, on play, you can trash 1 card and KO up to 2 of your opponent's rested 4 costs or less characters. And in Perona, this on paper seems like a very strong effect to combat the red-purple law, as the majority of their deck is 4 to 5 cost. Perona innately is able to rest a 4 cost character, and being a green-black leader also has access to cost reduction, and so being that red-purple law really only plays 5 cost and less characters, this card can easily clear 2 of those characters. In addition to that, it's a 7,000 power body, which means they need to invest at least 2 power removal or power reduction cards into removing this card. And it also has double attack, and double attack into a 4 life leader is always nice. Definitely helpful in closing out the game. So not many, I mean, I haven't seen any Perona decks doing well with Krieg in them, but maybe that's just because people haven't tried it out. So I think Don Krieg is a potentially very powerful card into red-purple law, and for that reason, it's definitely something I'm going to be playing around with. You guys loved the Perona deck profile we did before, so I'm probably going to do another one where we try and play around a little bit with the Don Krieg and see if it can help better our red-purple law matchup at all. That's it for the green cards. Nothing else here is relevant, unfortunately. For your blue stuff, again, nothing here is super relevant. Soga King might see some play in Boa. It can remove a card. It's got filter. and then if you've got 5 or less cards in hand after you've done your filtering, you get to draw an additional card. So definitely could be a solid card in Boa Hancock in helping you filter out your hand, which, if you watched my video, was something I think the deck struggled with. So I think this could be a good option to help filtering out dead cards in specific matchups. For purple, I think Kaido might be a good pickup for if you don't keep up with kind of spoilers and leaks and cards that are coming out soon over in the East. We are getting a new Luffy leader in OP09. It is a black-purple leader, and this Kaido card I think is going to be exceptionally good in that deck. Kind of for the reason that this card was good in blue-purple Kaido, being that you were able to play this card back-to-back relatively easily as long as you had Stage out and a Dawn on your leader. Black-purple Luffy can do that a little bit easier. So if you put 2 or more Dawn back with a single effect, you get 1 back rested and 1 back active. So if you play this on 10, you go Dawn -5 down to 5. You'll get 1 back active, 1 back rested, meaning you're on 7. So you're gonna untap on 9 Dawn again, meaning you can play another Kaido. And being that it's a black-purple leader means you've also potentially got access to cost reduction. So you could play that alongside the Kaido to remove more than a 6 cost body as well. All just making it look like this is going to be a very good card for the black-purple Luffy leader. Obviously, this is all very speculative, and we'll need to see what other support we get in OP09. But on paper, this looks like a very good card. It's been one of the best cards in purple in general. And in a leader that innately gets to take advantage of Dawn minus for more than 2, I think this is a very, very strong card. And I do believe this is like the max rarity version of this card right now. I guess maybe there's like a treasure cup version, but not many people are going to be going for that one, I don't think. So generally, I've not been one to collect a playset of SPs, but with the price on this one dropping, I may go ahead and do it just because I love playing me a Luffy leader, and black-purple is my favorite color combination, so I'm definitely excited to try that leader out in OP09. Holly, obviously a good card if you're playing Luffy, but outside of that, not a card you need. Though, like I said, I think Luffy is a deck that you might see pop up here and there. On to our black cards. This is where OP03 is really winning right now, and that's because the bulk of the black support in OP03 was for CP. And with the new Lucci leader in OP07, a lot of these cards are making a resurgence in terms of playability. Spandam, of course, being your searcher for the deck, Kaku being a nice removal piece, and Khalifa being a 2k counter means these are all very good cards for the Lucci deck. Unfortunately, my boy Lucci himself is not very good. I may still try and play around with a couple copies of it, but I would not advise it. Isho, also one of the best black cards in the current format, I think. Mono black decks in particular do have a pretty hard matchup into black yellow Luffy, and this is one of the cards that can help you pretty significantly in that matchup, as it's a way of helping you remove cards in their hand without actually attacking into them, which is what you don't want to do into black yellow Luffy, as that helps accelerate their game plan in putting them to 0 life so that they can start using their leader effect and becoming a 9k leader every single turn. But if you're not planning on playing the Lucci deck, I don't think you need any of these CP cards, though if you are, hopefully you did it before now, because they are probably going to be the most expensive they're going to be, given that that's going to be one of, if not the best deck in the current format. Personally, I still think Law probably edges this deck out a little bit in OP07, but it's nonetheless a very good deck and probably going to be my main deck for the OP07 format. Lastly, we have our yellow cards. Most of these big Mom Pirate type cards are down quite a lot in price because, like we said just a moment ago, unfortunately, while Katakuri is still a viable leader in OP07, he's not, like I said, the powerhouse that he once was. We are getting the Pudding leader in OP08, so I think holding on to your copies of the Pudding Searcher is not a bad idea if you plan on playing that. But outside of that, You aren't going to need most of these cards, with the exception of Katakuri, but this is getting a reprint in PRB01. I think the alt art looks very nice, but personally I still think I probably like the alternate art from OP03 a little bit better. But if you plan on playing NL in the OP07 format, you're definitely still going to want your copies of Katakuri. And I want to say it is going back up a little bit again from where it was at one point. A little bit, hold on, confused here. Is it saying $60 here? Okay, so we've only got one listing here at $46. So they are definitely back up at about $60 again. So hopefully if you were planning to play NL, you already picked up your copies of Katakuri, as they are going back up in price. They've been at about $40 and we're back up to 60. And NL, I think the deck's kind of a trap this format. I don't think it's as good as some people are making it out to be, but it's a deck that if you don't know how to play into it, it can very easily run you over. But I think it's a fine deck. But if you're planning to play it, hopefully you got your Katakuris already. 40 minutes in. Let's try and speed things up a little bit. OP04 sealed product holding pretty steady right around that $180 to $200 price point, kind of what we've been seeing. We haven't gotten any reprints for OP04, and I don't particularly think we need them, but we may get them in due time. For your leader cards, still far and away the most inexpensive leaders from any main set. Got some of them, the Queen and Isho, under $15, which is pretty crazy. I know Cross AI has been trying to make Rebecca work in the current format, so we'll see if he can cook up any spice, and maybe that will boost up the price of the Rebecca leader. But other than that, I don't see any of these leaders moving too much in terms of price. Your red stuff from OP04, BV is just one of the worst secret rares in the game. Newgate SP, good collector card, but I still personally prefer the OP02 alt. Hell's actually an interesting one, as we did mention there is a new Sanji leader in PRB01, and this is a nice solid red card that doesn't have an on play, and I think would benefit a lot from getting Rush, as it does have a pretty solid when attacking effect, which allows you to KO a 4000 power or less character. So combined with some other power reduction, this could be a pretty nice card in the Sanji deck as a removal option. But being Alabasta type means you don't really have access to a good searcher in a deck like Sanji, so it may not be consistent, but I do think it's something worth considering, and it is a relatively cheap alt. So if you're a Sanji coper like myself, maybe you pick up a couple of these cards if you want to try and play around with a max rarity version of the Sanji in PRB01. As far as green stuff goes, Doflamingo, very, very good card in Bonnie, but the price on it's down as well. I think if Bonnie ends up being a very dominant deck, though, we could easily see the price on this one go up. Corazon is a card that saw some early hype in Bonnie, but I think has definitely fallen out of favor. I still wouldn't be surprised if you see a couple lists running Corazon end up topping some events, as I do think, depending on the direction of the format, it is still a pretty good option. But outside of that, your Sugars, your Diamantes, none of these cards are super relevant right now. I do believe we were confirmed to be getting a reprint for this Doflamingo in PRB01, but I don't know that we've seen the art for that one yet. So if I missed that, let me know down in the comment section below. But if not, I think we're still waiting to see how the alternate art for that one looks. The SP Boa Hancock is, I want to say, the most expensive non-manga card in the set right now. And I'm a little bit surprised at how much more expensive this one is currently than the alternate art from OP01. I mean, I guess OP01 did get reprints and this is not, but still a little bit surprising that this one's about $40 more expensive than the OP01 alt. And myself, these both look incredible. I think personally I still like the OP01 alt a little bit better, but this one definitely looks incredible. I think just kind of I don't even know, I'm not an artist, I don't know the words, but like the way the card is like outlined, the dark outline makes the card look very, very nice. Kaido, this is, I think, a really good card in Boa Hancock. There are only 26 listings here, so you may see this one go up a little bit more in price, especially if you see a Boa Hancock list topping with this card in it, but I don't expect it to go up too much in price. And you also do have the SP variant from OP05 as an option to run in the deck as well. Talked a little bit about Magellan already. This is another alternate art option for it. Miss All Sunday is a card that's been seeing a lot of play in Red Purple Law. Typically a 2 of, though some people have been playing around with the build. It actually cuts Ein from the list and is maxing on 4 copies of Miss All Sunday. I believe they're doing this to make their going first curve a lot better, and because most decks want to go second and think Law decks want to go second, building your deck gearing it to more towards going first may be beneficial. And I also think that just having a 5-cost character is nice, a little bit harder for certain decks to remove. You know, Croc, he's a cool card if you're playing purple yellow Croc, but that deck's not very good. And again, everything outside of your alts is relatively cheap, so that's all nice to see. Sabo, just one of the best cards in black. We are getting a banned and restricted announcement at some point. I'm just kind of surprised I haven't mentioned that before now. This is a card I think might be worth considering putting on the banned or restricted list. This card just does so much, though this card did get restricted. It would basically kill the black-yellow Luffy deck, and I think that would be a bit unfortunate, so I hope it's not a card that gets hit, but it is definitely a very, very good card, especially when we're in a very removal-based format. The player who sees more of this in the Black Mirror match is often going to be the one who just ends up winning the game, as for some reason the cards that counter black seem to be in black, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but it is what it is. Your regular SRO Sabo, nearly $20, but if you're planning on playing Lucci, Perona, Black Yellow Luffy, this is a card you're probably going to need 4 copies of. There are some Lucci lists. I want to say Lucci's generally running 2 to 3 copies of this card. You definitely can run 4, and it probably wouldn't be a bad thing. And then outside of that, nothing else in black really worth mentioning. Yamato is actually down quite a bit in price, which is a little bit surprising because with NL being a more popular deck, I would have expected this one to be a little bit more expensive. However, we did get a confirmation that this is another card that's getting a reprint in PRBO1. I think the alternate art on the reprint looks very nice. I still think I like this one a little bit better though we'll have to see the other reprint one in person, as it does have a, if I'm remembering it right, it has a blue background, and the foiling on blue cards in the One Piece trading card game is typically incredible, so maybe seeing it in person will pull me over to the reprint alt. Capone, one of the best and most egregious cards in yellow. Definitely, if you're planning to play yellow and you're a max rarity gamer, you're going to want 4 copies of this. It is getting a reprint in PRBO1 though, and I do think there's like it's not necessarily getting a new alt, but it's getting like a full art version of this art, if I'm not mistaken. So another, not necessarily max rarity option, but a higher rarity option for people who want to play the Capone. Sanji, unfortunately not a card that's been seeing a lot of play though in any of the current formats. That's it for OP04. On OP05, we've got our sealed product at about $230 right now. So again, right there in line with OP01 and OP03. All these boxes around $250 right now. I still think this is way too much to pay for a box of OP05, considering the value of the cards in the main set. We are seeing the NL alternate art leader up in price a little bit, but everything else, kind of, with the exception of NL, this set is very similar to OP04 now in terms of leader prices. With the banning of Sakazuki, all the leaders are very cheap with the exception of NL and Luffy to some extent. but we did get that PSA version of the Luffy leader now, which I think for people who are playing Luffy, that is definitely going to be considered like the max rarity option, as I've already been seeing listings for that card go for about $300. Red stuff, we already talked about. The Oda sign card, Nami SP, it's expensive, but nowhere near expensive as the alternate art from OP01, and I think that makes sense. The OP01 alt looks a lot better in my opinion. I love the SPs from OP05, they're probably my favorite SP design, but the alt from OP01, like, come on, it's just better than this one. And then, like I said, your alts from OP05 are super cheap. You got this Sabo, $2, Bello Betty, Koala, all under $10. The Oda Art Luffy, not the signed one, $10. Everything here super cheap for red. Kind of similar with green. Everything here is super cheap. Yamato SPs relatively expensive still. More expensive than the OP01 alternate art now. And then Baby 5 being your most expensive green alt outside of the Yamato. Makes sense as this is a card that is seeing a lot of play in a lot of Bonnie decks. And Bonnie, I do think, is going to be one of the more powerful decks. I think I would probably say it's top 3 or top 4 decks in the current format. You've got Law, Lucci, Black Yellow Luffy, and Bonnie. I think those are the big 4. And then you'd probably throw NL in there as well. But I think, personally, I think NL is at the bottom of that list. For your blue stuff, I briefly mentioned the SP Kaido. More expensive than the alt from OP04. So I guess this would make this the max rarity option for this card right now. Interestingly, we are seeing a rise in price on the secret rare Kaido base art. This one's gone up quite a bit as it is a deck that's seeing play in Boa as well as Doflamingo. I'm not a big fan of this card in Boa, as I think it's kind of counterintuitive to what the deck is trying to do, but it certainly is an option that you can consider running in the deck. And drawing 4 cards with a big body, that's just pretty good. But Borsalino, I remember when this card was like $30 back when Sakazuki was good, down at $2 now for an alternate art. This is where I could understand some players being a little bit concerned. Like these OP05 alts are so cheap relative to alts from most of the other sets. Like, yes, there were cheap alts in the other sets, but $2, $4, I don't know. That's a little bit, I don't know. I don't even know what to say, but it's a little bit, I guess, concerning for the OP05 side of things. Your alternate arts for purple, I think purple has some of the best alts from this set. Zoro Juro seeing a resurgence in play. Kid still just being one of the best cards in purple. And then Luffy, very good in the mono purple Luffy deck, or the not mono purple, red purple Luffy deck. And also could be a good card in the black purple Luffy deck, as it is another leader that can afford to use the Dawn -10 effect due to getting the Dawn back through their leader effect. Zoro Juro, I think this one's a pretty solid pickup. You're playing this in your red purple all decks now that Great Eruption has been banned, as it's a lot harder for the black decks to remove this card on curve if you play this on turn 2 going first. Really, the only way your opponent's going to be doing this now is if they play like a Suru alongside a Brook, or if Lucci has the stage on their first turn and the Brook. But outside of that, the Zoro is probably going to be living a turn, so you're going to get the ramp off of it, which is really nice. You do have to keep in mind, though, you do have to be 3 life to get that ramp, so if your opponent doesn't attack into you, you won't be getting the ramp. But it's a lot harder to out this card now, and you need a combination of cards that are not searchable in the black deck, so I think Zoro Juro is definitely going to be a staple in red purple law for the time being. For your black cards, Lucci, absolutely insanely good card. I hope this card is not one that gets banned or restricted, but I could definitely see it happening if they want to hit something in black. I feel like most people are expecting the hits to be targeting red, purple, law. If you're keeping up with how tournaments are going over in the East for OP08, it is egregious the amount of law that you're seeing in Top Cut. So I definitely think law is probably going to be the focus of the ban list, but I also wouldn't be surprised if something in black gets hit. Lucci and even Rebecca, I think, are probably both contenders for cards that could get banned in black. These alts are the ones that still hold value, but again, your regular Lucci for you base rarity players, it's very cheap, so still making the black decks accessible for newer players. And as far as your yellow stuff goes, Gadatsu's a good card. Enel's not seeing play in all the Enel decks anymore, but Gadatsu definitely is. And the price on this one's also down quite a bit. So if you're planning to play Enel and you like to alt your deck out, Gadatsu's a good pickup. That's it for OP05 though. Getting close to an hour. For OP06, your leaders are still holding some okay value here. Perona and Yamato being the most expensive. Unfortunately, with red purple law being a thing, Reiju has fallen completely out of play. However, if they do decide to ban the law leader, I definitely could see Reiju making a comeback. I still think it's a pretty solid deck, with the exception of law being a horrible matchup, almost unwinnable, I would say. And I think Gecko Moria is still pretty good too. I could see Gecko Moria topping a couple events, and maybe the price on this one goes up a little bit. In terms of your red stuff, Shiraya, really good card. I think you need to be running 3 to 4 copies of this card in red purple law right now for the black yellow Luffy matchup alone. If you see enough copies of this card and your opponent is not able to deal with this as black yellow Luffy, this is your game winning card, as it's a 3-cost card that becomes a 9k if your opponent's leader is a 9k, which is something that the black yellow Luffy deck likes to do a lot. But this is for the alternate art. For your regular art, you're looking at $1. That's great. Shanks, I think if you're planning to try and play red purple Luffy, this is a staple in the current format. Lots of 10,000 power or less bodies that are very relevant, and this card just gets rid of it. Very nice. And then it's a 12k body that your opponent then has to worry about. For your green stuff, Zoro Secret Rare has been going up in price. Been a pretty popular pick in Bonnie, and even a little bit in Perona in your green decks. I'm not totally sold on this card yet, but when it sticks, it can just outright win you the game, being able to attack 3 times. But the issue I have with this card is that if the deck just removes it, you basically wasted your whole turn, because you spent 9 Dawn doing nothing. It doesn't do anything on play. Yes, your opponent has to invest resources into removing it, but the removal in the card game is very strong right now. So getting this to stick can be tricky, but when it does happen, more times than not, you're just going to win the game with this card. So I definitely see the draw. Hody Jones, I'm honestly a little bit surprised with how cheap the alternate art for this one is. We are getting the reprint in PRB01, but we aren't getting that till November. And this is like a for sure 4 of in Bonnie specifically. Your regular SR about $5 right now, and that makes sense. Bonnie's, I think, a pretty popular deck for the current format, and this card right here is absolutely necessary, in my opinion, to win the red purple law matchup. If you watched my deck profile on this one, I think I was only playing 3 and I should have been playing 4. But I think red purple law, while a very hard matchup, is winnable because of this card alone. So definitely think you need to have your 4 copies of Hody if you're planning to play Bonnie. For your blue stuff, everything's relatively cheap. Sanji alt's up there, but it's not really seeing play in anything. The most interesting thing I think here for the blue is the Gravity Blade is at about $3 right now, which is a little bit surprising for a rare, but It's probably the best card in blue right now for the current format. Blue decks need to see this for red, purple, law. It removes 2 of any card on their field, essentially, because they're all playing like 5 cost and less. And it can also just outright win you the black, yellow, Luffy matchup, because what they like to do is play out a couple copies of Sabo, be a 9k leader, and hide behind those. This card just says, put those Sabos to the bottom of the deck, you're not bringing those back anymore. And if they're not able to establish a blocker, a lot of times with what the cards they got in hand, you can just put everything on one of your characters and win the game. So, really powerful card for 2 of the best decks in the format. And I think that, being that Black, Yellow, Luffy, and Law are 2 of the best, if not the best decks in the format, and this card alone counters it, is reason enough for some players to want to play blue. So, I guess I'm not too surprised, but only 21 listings left is kind of absurd for a rare. For your purple stuff, Missile Sunday, we already talked about the alt in OP04. This is, of course, your max rarity option for you people who are into that. $90. I think this is the second most expensive SP in the set now, with Charlotte Linlin dropping down in price, as you're going to see in just a minute. Reiju, of course, being just an egregiously good card in red, purple, law as well. You need to be running 4 copies of this. If you see 2 to 3 copies of this card, in just about any matchup, you usually just win because of the insane amount of card advantage that you have with it. But outside of that, because purple support was geared towards Reiju in this set, the rest of the cards aren't very good anymore, unless Law gets hit in the ban and restricted announcement. If it does, I could definitely see these alts going back up in price, because I still think Reiju, with the exception of Law, has a very solid matchup spread. For your black stuff, Gecko Moria, of course, there are a lot of good black cards, as we stated. Sabo, Gecko Moria, Lucci, Rebecca. This is just one of those best cards in black. We've got a lot of really good cards in black. The alt price is coming down a little bit, but if you're playing any black deck, be it Gecko Moria, Black Yellow Luffy, Rob Lucci, Perona, this card's a 4 of in all those decks, and that's the reason we're seeing it as one of the most expensive SRs in the game right now. SP Rebecca being the most expensive non-leader card, or non-manga card from the set right now. And that makes sense. This art, I do think, is a lot better than the OP05 alt. A lot more vibrant and colorful. Kind of weird, the OP05 alt looks very, like, almost watered down or faded. But, yeah, this one definitely the max rarity option for Rebecca. One of the best cards in black. Verona is down tremendously. During OP06, we saw this card at nearly $100 for quite a while, if not a little over $100. Gecko Moria, very dominant deck. I still think it's a deck that has room to be successful, but I think Lucci is probably the better black deck in the current format. Low-key, this Brook card's pretty good. I don't see it going up a lot in price, but I think it's a very good card. Good call for the current format. And whenever I cover Lucci again, you're probably going to see this card popping up. SP Linlin down so much. This one was like 120 at one point. Now we're at $55. I think when I bought it, it was 100. So I guess that's a feels bad, but that's what I get for being impatient and buying a card that I didn't need. I just wanted it for my collection, so that's kind of on me. Hiyori alternate art coming down a little bit. I think this one's getting a reprint in PRB01 as well. Onami's got the SP now in OP07, which is probably going to be considered the max rarity option. But just generic SR, Hiyori is still one of the more expensive SRs in the game right now. Very good card in just about any yellow deck, but specifically one of your most important cards in the Black Yellow Luffy deck. But other than that, yellow stuff down a lot in price. Rest in peace, Reject. You will not be missed. For EB01, boxes are coming down about 130 right now. It's not too bad. As far as your leaders go, they're all kind of dookie, but someone did get top cut with Odin at the end of the OP06 format. So shout out to them for kind of being a Giga Chad for playing Odin to one of the biggest events that's happened and doing very well with it. I think they went 8-2, but unfortunately lost their first round of top cut, but nonetheless still a very good achievement and one that you should be proud of. As far as your red cards go, Kid and Killer, very good card, most expensive red alt from the set for good reason. Chopper is a card that's been seeing a little bit of play in red purple alt decks, so the price on this one is up a little bit. I still think it's pretty surprising how expensive the regular rare for Kid and Killer is, but I guess it is just one of the best cards in red. And it seems like the EB set, kind of like when we talked about the manga Chopper, maybe this set was not printed as much as it should have been, but I guess you could say that about a lot of the recent sets. Cavendish alt is going up, and so is the Cavendish SR. This card is up a ton. Really good card in the Bonnie deck, of course. Honestly, I think the regular art looks better than the alternate art, though, so even though I do like to play my decks alted out, I think this one just looks a little bit better. But Hiyori, very good card in the Perona decks. I think you need to be running 2 to 3 copies of this card in Perona right now. Just super good in letting you play this from trash with Gecko Moria, play a Ryuma from hand, get some additional card draw. The deck just does a really good job of filtering through the deck and making sure you always have the card you need for any given situation. Blue stuff, I don't even want to talk about this stuff. This stuff's all garbage. Bond clays are coming down in price, which may seem a little bit surprising because it's still currently played heavily in red purple law. However, going into OP08, this card does not see play in red purple law anymore and is entirely replaced with a combination of the new Black Maria, which is a problematic card, and the Pudding, which is another very good card for the deck, and just kind of helping you do what this card did. But they're going to stick on the board a little bit more just because they're not 1000 power bodies, which can easily be removed in the mirror without any cost reduction or power reduction. Black cards, Brook's great, card super good. Your regular art on the Brook is up a little bit as well. Alternate art's been pretty stable, but your regular art for the Brook's up, kind of like the Cavendish. Only 22 listings left on that one. Very nice card for Rob Lucci and Gecko Moria decks. As far as your yellow stuff goes, Flampe up there with Kid and Killer for most expensive rares. And then Flampe, just an absolutely essential card for most yellow decks, I would say. Very good in NL. And your best 2k counter in Black Yellow Luffy, as when your opponent tries to starve you out, this card can help you take your own life, as well as helping you keep card advantage. So you're not really losing anything when you play this card out, as you get to draw the life and a card from the top of your deck. Shirahoshi, I think, is a card that is seeing a little bit more play in NL decks in the current format, with Sakazuki gone, bottom decking's less relevant, and so this is a card that can be really annoying for a deck like Rob Lucci to deal with. And that brings us finally to OP07. We're just going to kind of look at the whole set here, talk about the prices. Things are way down from pre-sale. Nami SP is the most expensive non-manga card from the set. Currently booster boxes are about $130, which in all honesty is a lot better than I was expecting, given how bad pre-orders were for this set. Boa and Bonnie are kind of tied for the most expensive leader right now. Bonnie, very good leader. Boa is mostly waifu tax, but it's a okay leader. Your most expensive non-SP leader is going to be the Ace 10 cost. This is an immediate 4 of an NL. I think this card is the best card in the deck and the reason you would want to play NL. Like I said, I still think NL is kind of a trap, but if you're able to draw all of your aces, you probably just win. This card is absolutely disgusting when you see it in multiples. Lucci leader, The art's grown on me a lot. I did not initially like this alt at all, but it's grown on me a bit. I can still understand why you wouldn't like this one though, but Lucci being a relevant leader is the reason this card is somewhat expensive right now. SP Kid, the Slump God himself. It is the max rarity version of the 5-cost Kid now. So if you're looking to max out your Law deck, you're definitely going to want your copies of Kid. Doflamingo SP also up there with the Kid as your max rarity Doflamingo option now. Like we said, Doflamingo, one of the more expensive rares from OP01, may even have been the most expensive rare from OP01 now. Very good card for any blue deck. This alternate art Luffy looks absolutely incredible in person and is definitely a staple in most yellow decks, and specifically for your black yellow Luffy deck, as this is now a removal card you have for the deck, and it also gets you a card draw, which can be pretty important for those end game scenarios where you're starting to gas out. Just being able to play this out, you know, with a Gecko Moria and your leader effect, drawing you an additional card and removing something from the board is exceptionally powerful. The treasure rare Law is pretty cheap. It's actually cheaper than the Nami already, which is surprising because this card I think looks so much better than the Nami, and it's a more playable card. I love this card. I know I'm not super familiar with the artist. It's Peach Momoko, but I know they're like a big Marvel artist, and if I recall, they do a lot of stuff for like the Marble Snap mobile game from what I've been told, but not too familiar. But I think it's a beautiful card and very reminiscent of Law's introduction to the series, so I like the card a lot. Boa Hancock alt, this one's a little bit cheaper than I think some people were expecting. I think people thought Waifu Tax would carry this card a little bit more. Very good card, very nice stat line at a 6 cost, 8,000 power with a solid on play. But like I said, blue, it's okay right now, but it is not the most powerful deck in the format by any means, and you are definitely going to struggle into the black decks. Isho SP, about 40 bucks as well, alongside Izo SP. Sabo alternate art, a little bit surprised. This one's a little bit cheaper than I was expecting it to be, as it does see play in most black decks right now. I know Lucci typically plays it, Perona typically plays it as a couple, so a little bit surprised this one's not a little bit more. I could say the same thing about the Sanji as well, as this is a really good 2k counter for red purple Law. Your secret rare Ace is definitely up there. It's just a generic secret rare, one of the more expensive ones to be sure. Djembe, an incredible card for blue. I think it's one of the reasons you play blue right now is you can just swarm the board with this Djembe card, which can make it difficult for black decks to clear your board. Vegapunk leader, he's a funny guy, but he's not very good. Hawkins and Bonnie, two really good cards for green, especially Basil Hawkins. He is what gives green. Honestly, he evens out the green into black matchup, in my opinion. And we've got Dragon Leader, and then you've got your Law, Dragon Leader, not very good. Foxy Leader, not very good. This Law, I think this card's really good. I'm a little bit surprised it's not more expensive. Same thing with the Frankie and Otom. These are all 2Ks, and they're all rare alternate arts, I guess, is maybe the reason they're a little bit cheaper. But these are all very good cards for the respective colors, I think. Otama specifically necessary for the new build for Perona. I think this is just a staple in Doflamingo and Boa decks. And this is just a staple in NL, so I'm a little surprised these ones aren't a little bit more expensive, but I guess that's nice if you're looking to pick up copies of these cards. Sabo secret rare, about 16 bucks, seems pretty reasonable for a secret rare. And Stussy on the lower end for your alternate arts. And then kind of at the bottom of the barrel, you've got your Foxy alts and the Arena, which not a terrible character, but definitely just one of the less sought after cards for sure. As far as your generic SRs go, Monkey D. Luffy is up at the top, and I think that makes sense. Very good card, as we mentioned, for Black Yellow Luffy, which is one of the best cards in the format. And Sanji up there as well. also one of the best cards for one of the best decks in the current format, so nothing too surprising there. But outside of that, your alts are all under $5, and I think that is pretty nice to see. So that's kind of where we're at for OP07. Honestly, I'm really happy with where prices have settled for this. I think, you know, with the price of boxes, you know, there's still reason for people to want to buy and open a box, but you're not, like, the alts aren't anything outrageous for people who just want to buy singles as well. So that's going to wrap things up for the main set. Let's quickly talk about starter decks. I just want to talk about the first 4 starter decks in particular. Starter deck 1, 2, 3, and 4. And they're all down because alongside the OP01 and OP02 reprints, many LGSs did get reprint for the first 4 starter decks, as well as starter deck 6 if I do recall, which is really nice to see. I would have liked to see a reprint of starter deck 5 as some of those cards are getting a little bit more expensive, but I definitely think these are the ones that needed it most. Specifically starter deck 4, as that one was getting really expensive. Hopefully if your LGS did get these, they were not marking them up tremendously. I know some of the LGS in my area were still selling these for like 40 bucks. Hopefully they've lowered them now though, because we're looking at about 30 bucks right now for a starter deck 4. And that's awesome. I think this is definitely something we needed to see. There was no reason that starter deck cards, specifically like Queen, should have been some of the most expensive cards for players to get their hand on, given that they are starter decks. These are what should be getting people into the game and playing. So this is awesome to see. I'm really glad that the starter decks did get reprints. I've been hoping for this for quite a while, so I think this is a big win for the One Piece card game. We've got some promos we briefly want to talk about. The English version first anniversary set, they have been shipped. I just got mine earlier today at the time of this recording, and hopefully you weren't one of the individuals who decided to pre-order this at an absolutely outrageous price, like we see some people did here. This was just a few days, I mean a week or so ago, that some people did this. Hopefully you weren't one of those individuals, and hopefully the people who did do that were just people who were trying to artificially inflate the price of things. Yes, it's more than it was for pre-order, but $170, it's not terrible. The playmat's really nice. I love the sleeves. The box even looks incredible, as well as all the cards. I think it's definitely more of a collector's piece, and most people probably aren't going to be collecting a playset of these cards, but really nice set. It looks great. Very happy with it. But hopefully if you weren't able to get it pre-ordered, you know, if you want it, it is a little bit more now, but it's not too much more. And maybe if you wait a little bit longer, the price on it will come down a little bit more as well. Gordon, actually down in price, which might be surprising, as Red Purple Law is still very good. But I think the big thing here is that I think this is a card that people are worried will get hit in the banned and restricted announcement that we're getting in a month or so. I would not be at all surprised about this. I've been saying it for months that I think this card should just get banned, because Rise Max, I think, was effectively the reprint for Gordon, and there's no reason that you should be able to run 8 copies of a card. Yes, I know they're different cards, but I think Rise Max was the functional reprint without actually reprinting Gordon himself. So I think this card is definitely on the chopping block and would be a really good card to get banned, as it kind of fixes the problem with the Law deck being able to run 8 copies of this card. It also fixes the problem on the price. Now the price is not terrible right now. Still not great. I mean, relative to where it was, it is good, but no reason a card like this should be $21. If there's any card that needs to be banned outside of maybe Black Maria, I think that card maybe could get away with a restriction that, like, specifically Law is not allowed to play it. But I hope this is what gets hit, if not the Law leader himself. I think the Law leader himself, as much as I hate to say it because I do kind of like playing the deck, is a problematic card in terms of design, just because any 4 cost or less purple card or red card is just immediately better in law because you're able to play it for free with your leader effect. For your Dawn cards, most of your Straw Hat Dawn cards have been pretty stable, not a lot of change, which I'm a little bit surprised by because these aren't being given out in any tournaments right now, so I kind of expected them to start going up a little bit more. They're not, which I do think is nice. The Celebration Pack Dawn, however, is going up. Definitely glad I got these on the cheap. So this is probably my favorite set of Dawn. I think the black with the red just looks really, really good. But your other Dawn, relatively, reasonably priced. The new double pack Boa Dawn is somewhat expensive. Gear 5 Dawns are down a lot. This 3D Dawn you get from Treasure Cups, relatively cheap as well. So everything looks pretty good here. We did get some new winter cards. The Law got a reprint, so I think that's nice. He's one of the most expensive winter cards right now. Momo up there as well. Max rarity version of the Momo. Pretty cool to see. But other than that, things are, pretty reasonable. There was a time when some of these winter cards were pretty outrageously priced. We do have some new event pack cards. We got event pack volume 4 now, which has this Momonosuke, Sabo, Jinbei, and Law. None of these cards are super relevant, so I would wait for more of these packs to get distributed before you try and pick up some copies of these cards, as I do think right now you are going to be overpaying for them. Yes, real quick, the Celebration pack Luffy is up, I want to say. Or no, I guess it's down. I don't know. It looks like it's down. I guess the price hasn't moved all that much, but it does look like, to me, there aren't very many listings for it right now, so maybe getting a little bit more expensive from where it was. Not a playable card, but it just kind of looked good as a collector piece. Got the art from the first Shonen Jump where One Piece debuted, which is pretty cool. And then for your other Celebration Pack cards, Mihawk specifically has been bought out. I think this is due to the Weemy army who is starting this Doflamingo cult. Doflamingo is a fine deck, but definitely not the best deck in the format. Definitely don't buy it at this price. Bonnie's actually down a little bit, so if you're looking to max out your Bonnie deck, I'm not saying it's a good pickup, but it's a lot cheaper than it was. It was up over $100 for a while, and if we see Bonnie start topping a lot, people may want to start max raring their Bonnie deck, and this is a card I could see going up in price. And finally, we're at our pre-release stuff. Some of your film stuff is still holding value. Your Gecko Moria's back up again, just because, again, we've got this like Doflamingo cult going around right now. Sanji's Pilaf, just as a Nami card. Eni's Lobby is up a lot. I'm really glad I bought 4 copies of this card for 99 cents, just because I like my CP stuff, and it is a pretty good card for the Lucci deck, though with the build I'm playing with, I don't think it's a necessary card for the deck. Baby 5 and Viola up, as they're good 2K counters for the black, or not for Bonnie. They're 2 of the best 2Ks for Bonnie, searchable Don Quixote cards. This Luffy is up, and I think it's for Sanji hype, as this does not have an on-play effect, and it's an 8 cost, which means you can slam this down, give it rush, and now you're rushing 9k with Banish, and that's pretty cool. You could go 7 with the lead, 9 with Banish on 10, and that seems pretty strong. And then we've got this Robin's still expensive, Onami's still expensive. Your first anniversary stamped card is still a little bit more expensive than most of your other stamped cards. For OP06, Rise Max is up there, Shindri's up there. Nothing really moving a lot here though. And then for OP07, Nico Robin's at the top, and I think this is purely due to waifu tax. It's a really good card for Vegapunk, but outside of that, not a very good card. This is a pretty good Nami card, so probably why we're seeing that one more expensive. And then 41 listings. That's actually kind of insane for a pre-release card. The Crocodile again. We've got that Doflamingo cult going around, and this is your max rarity version of this card right now. Very good card, by the way. But that is going to wrap things up. So yeah, the video still ended up being almost an hour and a half. You guys say you don't mind this. I know I haven't been doing these as much, and I hope that you've still been enjoying the gameplay videos we're doing. While I do like doing these market watches every couple of weeks, I think I do enjoy doing the gameplay videos more, which is why I've shifted a little bit more in that direction. Definitely going to keep doing these market watches probably every 2 to 3 weeks, especially after big events and prices start moving. But as a whole, I think doing these is a little less important right now, just because the market is in a lot better place than it was. For a while there, we were kind of in a state of anytime a deck did well, the cards for that deck were getting bought out. So I think the speculation there was a little bit more important, especially for players who don't have the time that I have invested into just kind of looking at the market for seemingly no reason. But I appreciate everyone who's still watching these market watches, and I really especially appreciate everyone who's watching the gameplay videos. Hoping to, probably right after I get done recording this, I'm going to go ahead and start doing some more games on the sim with Red Purple Luffy and try and get a video out for that tomorrow. Maybe a little bit slow on content next week, because as I did mention, all my wedding stuff is happening this weekend, so Monday and Tuesday may be a little bit dry, but I'm going to try and have some stuff ready for then. But if not, I hope you understand that, you know, I've got some personal stuff going on. But I'm going to go ahead and stop rambling now. So, again, if there were any cards that you plan on picking up from the video, do consider using the TCG Player affiliate link down in the video description. But with all that said, as always, thank you all so much for watching, and I will catch you all in the next video. Peace.